Anytime you hear Mark Carney talking about trade with the US or tariffs on Canadian exports, you should just say, who cares, change the channel, and tune him out, because that was his message to you. So you know what, Mark Carney, this part's especially for you. On behalf of the millions of Canadians you've let down and insulted, every time you open your mouth in Parliament, our message to you, who cares?
Who cares?
Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
When the Prime Minister said who cares during his visit to the UAE recently about the state of trade talks with the US, he meant it, and here's why. No one should be naive in thinking that the Prime Minister left a trillion-dollar company making millions of dollars in both salary and deferred compensations for some virtuous reason to make $400,000 as the Prime Minister to negotiate a trade deal or save us from ourselves. Almost everything in the Budget Implementation Act is set up to use the power of the Prime Minister's office to benefit a group of well-connected Liberal insiders, lobbyists, and his corporate buddies. This was a process that started in 2020 when the Prime Minister was appointed as the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau while still acting as chair of Brookfield Asset Management. Having Trudeau in power was a dream come true for this incestuous cabal of Liberal elites. While Trudeau was playing Prime Minister, the pieces being put into place to ensure that many, if not all, of the public financial instruments, green investment funds, and policies the Prime Minister started pushing when he was pulling Trudeau's strings as his economic advisor aligned with Brookfield's strategy and success. Last week, we found out from Brookfield's chief operating officer that the Prime Minister stands to make millions in carried interest payments from his company's success related to climate and infrastructure schemes he set up. These funds could generate tens of millions of dollars in carried interest for the Prime Minister personally, depending on their performance over the next decade. But here's the problem. The Prime Minister knows what he owned before the blind trust was set up. Every time he makes a decision on infrastructure, energy, climate policy, or with tax incentives that are in the BIA, this will help Brookfield in areas where Brookfield is deeply invested. Questions should arise. Is this policy for Canadians, or Brookfield, or for him? Critics will argue that they've set up a blind trust and an ethics screen, and that's enough to ensure public confidence and trust. But Brookfield's interests from artificial intelligence, modular housing, carbon capture, nuclear, and the transition model of public risk for private return he set up while advising Trudeau will make the Prime Minister millions, and he knows it. Furthermore, the screen is administered by two political appointees by the Prime Minister. We found out last week that the Prime Minister met with Brookfield executives privately in the Prime Minister's office in October, which would cause a reasonable person to think that the screen is not being willfully applied, given the fact that the Prime Minister is not supposed to have any interaction with Brookfield, either its people or its entities. So who cares? We all should, because democracy depends on trust. If Canadians believe their leaders are making decisions to enrich their companies or themselves, confidence in our institution erodes even more than it has under these Liberals. This isn't about partisan politics, it's about accountability. Canadians deserve leaders who serve the public interest, not private portfolios. So my assessment on this budget is simple. For those who support expansive government involvement in every aspect of our economy, subsidies given to companies that would otherwise invest their own capital, Brookfield's deep involvement in policies shaped by their former chair and now Prime Minister, policies which he and the company stand to gain from, bloating debt and deficits that burden our families, seniors, and future generations, and a system that gives Liberal insiders and lobbyists unfettered access to the Treasury while Canada drifts closer and closer towards a kleptocracy. This is the budget.
This is a little over time. Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I find it disgusting and somewhat shameful that members of the Conservative parties continue to have character assassination of the Prime Minister. At the end of the day, Madam Speaker, there are even Conservative MPs that have investments in Brookfield. Right. Individuals including the Deputy Leader. As opposed to dealing with the substance of legislation and the budget, we have a disgraceful attempt at character assassination time and time again from the Conservative Party of Canada. That's how low and dirty they are in regards to politics, Madam Speaker. I would ask a member, when are they going to start focusing on Canadian interests as opposed to their own political partisanship, Madam Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
Well, that got him going, didn't it? The truth hurts. Actually, everything I said is open source and based on testimony at the Ethics Committee and some of the discussion and questions that have been had in this office. The difference is the Prime Minister holds the levers of power in this country. Every decision that he makes, Madam Speaker, can and will benefit him, Liberal-connected insiders, and his corporate buddies. That's the difference. When members of the opposition hold stocks, let's say in Brookfield, they don't hold the levers of power that will enrich themselves. They do not, Madam Speaker. The truth is the truth, and what I spoke today is the truth.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Portage Lisca.
Thank you to my honourable colleague for an excellent speech. I'd like him to continue a little bit on this vein. He's clearly touched a pressure point with the government. If he could explain, we've talked a lot about there being a blind trust, but the fact is we know the shares remain in Brookfield. That's why policies that directly impact and benefit Brookfield, we know are helping the Prime Minister. So I'm wondering if the member could clarify why the blind trust, as established, is not doing an adequate job in stopping this Prime Minister from enriching himself.
Honourable member for Barrie South Innisfil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a simple response because the Prime Minister knows precisely what's in that blind trust. He set up the investment schemes, green infrastructure, etc., when he was advising the Prime Minister. So he knows full well what's in that blind trust. The problem is that every policy decision that he makes can and will in some way impact him and his corporate buddies. The Conflict of Interest Act, which the Ethics Committee is studying right now, has a massive hole that you can drive a truck through, and this is what the Prime Minister is applying right now as it relates to the general application rule. He can make decisions on broad policy decisions that impact his company and his investments, like the tax credits, for example, that are in the Budget Implementation Act, or nuclear deals with the United States and Washington, which his company owns. All of this means that the blind trust is not really blind at all to the Prime Minister, that he can, in fact, use his position to influence policy decisions and make millions in the same time.
Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you,
to the Prime
Minister. The member opposite represents a rural riding, and as do I in Nova Scotia. I don't know how many farmers he may have, but I certainly think about the opposition party. They do hold rural seats, and I was very disappointed in the platform of the Conservative Party in April that there was not one single policy platform for the agriculture sector. He represents a rural riding. I'm wondering if he's willing to talk to the leader of the official opposition, Battle River Crowfoot, to see whether or not that can be something that the Conservative Party actually stands for. I worry that it's a constituency that they've taken for granted, Mr. Speaker. Wondering if he has any comment on that.
The honourable member for Barrie South Innisfil.
Well, Madam Speaker, I'm very proud to represent a rural part of my riding in Innisfil. We've got the largest privately held farm in Ontario. We've got the largest onion farmer in Canada. The policies that we put forward would have directly impacted in a positive way farming communities who, for example, the industrial carbon tax, which is still applied. Every time those farmers buy equipment, buy fertilizer, all of that is applied, and it has a cascading effect down the supply chain. And the honourable member wonders why food inflation and why food insecurity is so great in this country. It's a direct result of the failed economic policies of this government that are affecting farmers at the cost level, and those costs are being applied and downstream as well to the end consumer, Madam Speaker. So I'm very proud of the policies that we put forward with respect to agriculture, and I'm very proud to represent a riding that has agriculture in it. Thank you.